Hello and welcome to AustCham Thailand's Business Connections community, an online program where we bring you regular updates of what's happening in the Australian Thai business community. I'm your host, Brendan Cunningham, the Executive Director of AustCham, and we once again have a great lineup of members for you to discuss business, connections and community. Stay with us. And welcome back. In our business section today, we're looking at the building and construction industry, and we have with us two of our gold sponsors, Chris McLoughlin, Manager Manufacturing Excellence from NS BlueScope Asia and AustCham Thailand Vice President, and John Anderson, Director of Meinhardt Thailand and Managing Director of Meinhardt Myanmar, plus John, a former President of AustCham Thailand.
Great to be here, Brendan.
Good to be here. Thanks, Brendan.
Thank you. Thanks for coming in. So the building and construction industry is often a gauge of the economy in general. So I thought it would be very useful for our audience to provide an update on what's happening in that industry. And as I mentioned at the beginning, don't be afraid to give us the full details of it. You don't need to paint a rosy picture if it's not there. So how about we go back, if possible, before COVID even hit? Where were we at in the industry back then?
I think it's an important place to start because the reality is that the pre-COVID environment is the environment that we're going to be going back into post-COVID. So certainly there was a slowing down of building construction activity within Thailand. The government spend on infrastructure was very strong and has remained so through COVID. But foreign investment was starting to slow down. We had an oversupply of residential units within the market. That was starting to slow down also. So we need to consider these things and how we manage those things when we're coming out of COVID. Yeah, what were you saying, John?
Well, certainly, I guess if you're using that sort of analogy, I guess the construction industry was a child approaching, starting to get a high temperature. Certainly it was probably due for a slowdown anyway, and what we saw with COVID was an acceleration of that slowdown. Obviously, you saw a sudden foreign investment we didn't have foreign tourists coming here, so that had a massive effect on the hospitality sector, and there's a lot of construction associated with the hospitality sector, with hotels, resorts, all that sort of stuff. So, understandably, some of that stuff was slowed down or put on hold. So I think if it hadn't been for COVID, we would have seen a bit of a slowdown anyway. Underlying that, there was a big build infrastructure spend in Thailand, so that was sort of keeping, the base industry quite active. But in the private sector, I think we were going to see a bit of a slowdown anyway. But yeah, it's happened quite suddenly. And as Chris is saying, once the COVID thing is over, we will see a return to, Perhaps in some ways it might be a good thing because it's sort of hopefully we've had the little recession and we might go back into a sort of growth thereafter.
Absolutely.
Ready to build.
Yeah, ready to build, yeah.
So to use your analogy, the child had starting to get a temperature. Suddenly, February, March last year, it went blown into full fever. What happened to the industry as soon as the shutdown hit?
Okay, I think from our point of view, it's a bit of a tanker sometimes because it's a big ship. It takes a while to slow it down.
Right.
So, certainly, not everything gets put on hold, or some things are ongoing. There's construction contracts. There's big legal agreement, whatever. So things persist. Sometimes in some of those cases they might have slowed down a little bit, but we didn't see a lot of, for example, construction sites stop. So things that were already awarded to contractors generally. They continued, but things that were in the planning stage, to be honest, a lot of those projects also continued, maybe with a little bit of a slowdown, and maybe things didn't then go to tender. So, in other words, the sort of pipeline for the new construction, perhaps there's a bit of a dip there we might see.
I'd certainly agree with that. And another thing that we saw, part of our business is involved in the physical construction activity and the availability of migrant work and migrant workers. I think there was perhaps an underappreciation of the role that they actually play within Thailand and keeping a lot of that work going. And we certainly saw that impact on some construction sites and some large projects. And finding a way to manage that again as we come out of COVID will need some attention.
Right. So the tanker takes a while to slow down.
It does.
I'm assuming it also takes a while to get going again. So
it's true, yeah.
Tell us how you see with the current market and what recovery looks like.
I think from an economic standpoint, depending on where you look, most economic forecasts for Thailand in terms of growth over the next few years are around 3 or 4%. Building construction looks to be quite similar. The government's still spending a lot on infrastructure, rail networks, high-speed rail, eastern seaboard. So their spend, which has been quite strong, is expected to grow by about 6 or 7%. Foreign investment will improve from where it was. Residential will improve from where it was, but again, coming off a very low base in those areas over the last 12 months.
Agree with that.
Agree, yeah. Excellent. So I think we've seen, never to this extent, but we've seen the global financial crisis. I believe, John, you were here for the Tom Yum Goong crisis as well.
Of course, yeah.
So we've seen crises before, and we've also seen us come out of it.
That's right. There are some parallels, but one of the differences here is this is the worldwide.
Right.
So, the Tom Yum Goong crisis, it started in Thailand and it sort of infected Southeast Asia. And actually, finally, a lot of good came of it, because a lot of good reform came about as a result of that, certainly in the private sector. Things like the IOD, I think the Institute of Thai Directors, that was actually, it had its sort of income, it was born from that period with basically the need for better governance in companies, because you basically had a lot of companies that weren't practicing very good governance. And it allowed some of that sort of stuff to happen, and it was through lack of transparency and stuff like that, and it basically unwound pretty quickly through Tom Yum Goong, and a lot of reform happened as a result of that. I guess this time around it's a bit different because it's affecting the world. But the positive signs are we've seen already a sort of uptick. Every time people talk about vaccinations and rollout of vaccination, we've seen that's been a positive signal, which has been reflected in sort of the inquiries we get. Like people were, and it's just a matter of time because they will come back. If you're a developer, you've got to be developing something, right? You can't just be sitting on money, right? So eventually you've got to do something with your money. And Thailand is still, an attractive location for overseas investment. It does have a bit more competition than it used to have.
Right.
And Chris and I were just talking about that earlier. Like Vietnam is certainly giving Thailand a run for its money as a preferred, investment location. So, Thailand now being a sort of middle income country, cost of doing business here is higher than it used to be. So, some of the economics, have changed a little bit too.
Yeah. For sure.
So, just with that, the conversation we're having was that, that the trade dispute between the US and China created a lot of opportunity for a lot of industries, particularly in Southeast Asia. That there is more competition, so we need to be thinking about how we be more competitive. There was some research by the World Economic Forum that identified for Thailand to be more competitive, the regulatory framework and finding a way to sharpen that up. So, the 10 for 10 is a great initiative around that, and AustCham's well and truly onto that. Also, the continual upskilling or skill improvement of technical people required around building and construction. So, as large companies that have a good technical background, there's an opportunity there for us and other AustCham members and other Australian businesses to think about how we rely on that technical expertise to create an edge and help improve Thailand engineering understanding and skills. Yeah.
Good. So overall, the feeling is that things aren't great, but it is getting more positive.
It's a slowdown, but it was probably going to happen anyway. Right. I think we've had an accelerated version of things, so it's been tough for for a lot of people. But at the end of this, those, if we're all still around,
Right.
I think there'll be a very positive upside to when we come out of COVID. Things will improve, and there'll be a lot of pent up, frustration, and people want to go out and spend money, invest money again in our sector. So we'll see it, but it will be a sort of slow build up to that, because of what we were saying before.
So there is a light at the tunnel. It's just a long way away. Little glimpse of that.
Yeah, well,
there.
hopefully we see that light soon, Brendan.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, Chris, John, thank you very much for joining us today. We appreciate your time.
No problem. Thanks, Brendan. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Chris.
Coming up next, we go to connections and how you can get more out of your chamber.
ร้อนงี้เปลี่ยนหลังคาเหอะเป็นเมสเซจชีท BlueScope Sax Cool บ้านเย็นกว่า
And welcome back to Connections. In this episode, we meet one of our members who I think not only AustCham members will know, but members of multiple chambers will know. She's very active across more than one chamber in Thailand. I'm talking about Heather Suksem from Deputy Chairman of OCS ROH, better known as PCS in Thailand. Heather, how are you?
Hi, Brendan. I'm fine, thank you. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Great. So Heather, as you know, I invited you into today's episode because I thought it'd be great to gather insights from you into how our members could get more out of the connection part. Our Sundowners perform very well as a networking event, but there's a lot more avenues to build connections. So before we begin, can you let us know, apart from AustCham, what other chambers you're involved in?
Yes, obviously as I in any chamber, then I'm representing PCS and OCS. And so quite a wide range of chambers, whether it's AustCham, of course, British Chamber, American Chamber, also Malaysian Chamber and Singapore Chamber. And so I join the FCA groups and also the JFCCT groups.
Excellent. And just to give our audience an example of what we mean there, I believe you were at the AustCham Walk the Talk Women in Leadership event this morning.
Correct.
And after filming today, you're going to?
The British Chamber event as well, because today's International Women's Day. So tonight we've got the British Women in Business event tonight as well.
Excellent. And I believe that's quite well booked, so it
over
should be
100 people, so it should be great.
It should be a good event.
But this morning was a great event also, and a lot of very positive energy there.
Excellent. So my first question is going back to a topic that we've talked about for over a year. COVID-19 hit, it turned the world on its head. I'd really like to know your insights into how you saw not only AustCham, but the chambers perform in general during this critical period for business.
COVID-19, well, we all hit, as you say, and the critical thing was that everything changed to be online, and but it changed very quickly, and I felt it went really well. And for me, actually, all the webinars were a lifesaver for me, because I would sit and watch these webinars and partake, and it was really very positive. There was a lot of people joining the webinars from any of the chambers, and in those days we all opened our cameras and we all shared, which I think is very important. So for me, I saw the chambers really move forward and really open up and really offer help. And everybody on the membership of the chambers were offering help to everybody. And so I thought it was very effective. There was a lot of webinars, kept us very busy, but they were very effective. People were helping, people were sharing information, sharing what they were doing. And so the chambers really turned on Zoom or Microsoft Teams or whatever, and it really went well. But there was also a lot of information out there, and I know from AustCham there was the COVID-19 updates, and that was also and still is very important. for updating what's happening in Thailand, and also the ambassador was giving an update every day.
He was
so,
excellent.
Yeah, so there was a lot of information, but I think for me the most important thing, there was a lot of really deep networking. Because we were seeing people, we were talking and sharing, and helping, which
Excellent.
was very good.
So for AustCham, we of course still have those resources on our AustCham resources page of the website, and I believe the other chambers do as well. Please contact whatever chamber you're involved in to chase up those resources if you'd like to watch them again. Thanks for the feedback. I appreciate that it's very positive feedback, but also interested to know, is there anything else that could be done, or any suggestions for myself and my colleagues running chambers?
Okay, for me, there's business connections, and I think it's very important for us to know people in businesses. But what's another big important role of the chambers is to be a voice to the Board of Trade and to the government, and to get the message over, and also to ask for help. What I found last year was we really had to have a stronger voice. And so I feel that the chambers can collaborate more. I know we've got the FCA and we've got the JFCCT, but I believe we can collaborate more, working with the Board of Trade to get that message over. And I believe, we're a great group of chambers. I believe we've got a lot of experience that we can also offer advice. But we needed help, certainly through PCS, we needed a lot of help. And the Board of Trade helped us there, but we had to go directly to them. So I believe collaboration is key, and we can get a stronger voice going together there.
Excellent. And we do meet on our side with the FCA partner chambers quite regularly, so we'll certainly be passing on that feedback. I appreciate that. What about for individual members or members of companies? Any advice for them personally? We do have some new members that come new to AustCham, and they enjoy the benefits we provide, but they're not maybe getting full benefits out of it as someone like yourself does. Any advice to them?
The advice is it's always the same: the more you put in, the more you get out. And all of the chambers have got special working groups, and what's important is to get involved in the working groups. As you get involved in the working groups, then you get to know more people, and you're talking to like-minded people on the same topic, whether it's property, whether it's building, whether it's SME, whether it's hospitality. All these groups are very important. So get involved in the groups. If you get involved in the groups, you know people. When you go to sundowners or these networking events, you then know people.
Right.
And it's not a case of going into a room where you don't know anybody, because nobody likes that. I don't like it.
Very daunting.
Right. So the more that you get involved in the groups, the more effective it is. And I find you come across some really good people that will help you and want to help. And that's what I find. So it's really worth it to do that.
Good. Maybe don't be afraid to ask for help as well. Part of the reason we're doing this series is to show who our members are. So if you do see Heather at any of our events, go up and say hello.
Last week, just at Sundowners, I asked one of the members at Sundowners relating to our business in India, and the next day he contacted immediately for us. Right. So this is what it's all about: connections, business-wise, but also a wider level of connection as well.
Good. And over the past year, the impact on most businesses, we've never needed each other more so than these days. Correct. And those relationships will be built on to go further forward. Great.
So it's been great, apart from the problems with the COVID.
Great.
Okay,
well,
thank
Heather,
you.
thank you. Thank you for coming in, and enjoy the BCCT Women's in Business event.
Thank you.
The members can meet Heather, of course, at Sundowners or multiple other events we run.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Coming up next, AustCham's community section and an update on our CSR initiatives. And welcome back. On AustCham's community section this episode, we're going to look at our CSR initiatives. And I'm joined by AustCham Director and CEO of Restaurant Developments, Andrew Norton. Andrew, how are you?
Good, thanks Brendan, good.
Great, thanks for joining us. Now, Andrew, you were quite recently made the lead of AustCham CSR Committee. How's that going?
Yeah, good. I mean, what members may not understand is the AustCham CSR Committee consists of and run by members of AustCham. We look for ways that we can make a positive impact in the communities in which we operate in.
Absolutely, and we have had CSR initiatives for many, many years now, as our older members would know, but we formed a new committee that's tackling these projects. So can you tell us a little about this new committee?
Yeah, so we met earlier this year and we took an opportunity to relook at our CSR strategy as we go into 2021. I mean, one thing we all know is there's plenty of need out there for good CSR campaigns to help organisations and people in need. So we think we can make a huge difference. And we wanted to relook at our programs and make sure that what we were doing was really impactful to the organisations we support.
Right. Good. And before we speak about what decisions were made in terms of organisations, I know what I was quite impressed with was going to that deeper level of making sure we had 3 pillars that were going to be the way forwards. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Right. Look, I think there's lots of places where you can make an impact, but we wanted to focus our efforts around 3 areas. That was in education, health and safety, and diversity and inclusion. We felt when we looked at causes that our members support and we look at the values of our members, it felt that these areas would ring true to them and be an area where not only AustCham but AustCham's membership base can really get engaged and make a difference in the community.
Excellent. And so based on those 3 pillars, decisions were made on the proposals received on who would receive the funding. So can you tell us who is receiving the funding?
Yeah, that's right. So in 2020, through the generosity of our members and through funds raised through events that are organised by AustCham, things like Sundowners, we collect funds for our CSR program.
That's right,
on behalf of members.
50 baht per ticket for Sundowners.
That's right, so every time you go to a Sundowners, there's 50 baht per ticket is collected, and other events that we host also are used as fundraising opportunities for CSR.
Right.
So the funds raised over 2020, we looked for opportunities to donate those to organisations that aligned with these 3 pillars in our CSR strategy.
Right. So, having been involved in it, of course, I know that a lot of our usual funds were, of course, donated to the Australian Bushfire donations through the Salvation Army, so the pool was a bit smaller this year.
That's right.
And what the committee did, I thought, was quite creative in that here is some funds we're donating, but what's the next step that follows after the financial donations?
Yeah, so the financial donation shouldn't be the end of our commitment to these organisations, because what we recognise in our membership base is incredible capability, generosity and skills that these organisations would benefit from. And a lot of our members approach us and say they're looking for ways that they can make a difference in the country beyond what they may be doing through their normal day-to-day operations. They're looking for a way to give back. They're looking for a way to say thank you and make a positive contribution in the communities they operate in. So what you're going to see over 2021 is not just a financial contribution from AustCham on behalf of our members, but also we're going to be connecting these organisations with members, offering opportunities for members to get closer to these organisations, to learn about what they do, to see the work they do. And where members want to, they can get involved with these sponsored organisations and give back in other ways.
And that's good for us as a community, because it means we know that our members are indeed involved in their own CSR projects, but the idea that we can have an Australian Thai community all working together, I think it's good for AustCham, and I believe it's good for our members as well.
That's right. I think there's a huge opportunity for us to amplify the connections we've already made with these organisations. I mean, I'll just give you one example. An organisation that we went to visit last year, the Hub, which is part of Childline. They have a facility that provides meals and a safe place to stay for people around Hualampong. It's an old facility. They have a kitchen and bathroom that needs upgrading. So beyond just donating funds, the organisation I work for, we specialise in building kitchens in restaurants.
Of course.
And so we're looking to go in and lend our expertise in designing equipment layout and of course actually doing the construction and layout for that facility. So that's a perfect example of connecting skills that our members have with needs of organisations and amplifying that connection that AustCham has.
Great. So if any of our members are interested in connecting with the organisations that we support, you can of course contact the AustCham office for more details, or you can speak to Andrew at many of our events, including Sundowners and other events we hold.
Yeah, and look, during 2021 there'll be opportunities for members to engage with these organisations, be it through meeting people at Sundowners that represent these organisations, or even coming to events that we're looking to organise where you can see the work these organisations are doing and learn a lot more about what impact they're having.
Great. So Andrew, I think we can speak about this a lot longer. We're running out of time, so I think you've brought along the Caring Community books, which if our members would like to know more about what we did last year, they'll all receive a copy of this to their doorstep very soon.
Yeah, so this was available at the AGM, but if you weren't able to make the AGM or you missed getting a copy of this will be sent out to members. It profiles the work not only done by AustCham and the Chamber, but also the work done by our sponsor organisations, which are doing incredible work and impactful work in Thailand.
Excellent. Well, Andrew, thank you for coming in today. It's just the initial stages of the new committee. I've already seen myself a lot of great work being done, and I'm looking forward to the rest of the year. And our members, I really hope you get involved, because we have an opportunity to do some really good work in the community.
Great.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And that's all for our AustCham TV Business Connections and Community for this episode. See you next time.